The key to knowing that you are ready financially is to actually even test it out. So there's two really different types of stress tests that I think it's really important for all first-time home buyers to put themselves through, just to make sure that you know that you're in good standing, because once you buy your first home, there is no backing out. And I don't want you going through foreclosure, and I don't want you going through any financial hardships. That's not the financially fabulous way. I want you to have peace of mind. I want you to feel great. I want you to have low stress. I want you to be enjoying your life, because you really only have one life to live. So there's two stress tests that I think are really, really important. Now, you may not particularly like these, but I do think that they're important for every first-time home buyer to go through them and really make sure that you pass with flying colors, because, you know, the worst case scenario can unfold and you don't want to end up there. So if you're prepared and you've tested for them, you'll be in good standing. So the first one that I think is really important for first-time home buyers to take a look at is the interest rate. So we have had really the privilege and the luxury over these last few years of having all-time low interest rates. I mean, interest rates in and around 2.5%, 3%, like that is ridiculously low. And, you know, that has actually, as a result, allowed lots of people to get into homes with mortgages that are probably a little bit more than they can handle. But, you know, starting with a 2.5% interest rate on a $500,000 mortgage or a $700,000 mortgage, you know, may not feel like the biggest of deals, but know that interest rates do fluctuate. And there's a really good chance that if you're in a 5-year fixed term mortgage in the time where it comes up for renewal, so if at the end of your 5 years, interest rates can be in a very, very different place, and your mortgage has probably not gone down all that much over a 5-year period. I mean, you've paid off a little bit of principal, but you might still have a pretty significant mortgage that you're responsible for paying off on a monthly basis. So that's why stress test number one that I think is really important for first-time home buyers to do is to increase the interest rate, hypothetically, of course, increase the interest rate on their mortgage by at least 2% to be able to see if you can still sustain it. Now, if you are actually putting down less than 20% down payment, then the lenders will actually do this for you. This is a new regulation that came into play in October of 2016, where there's sort of this stress test by the lender to make sure that if the interest rate goes up, you can qualify for it. So if you're putting down then less than 20%, this may have already been done for you, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it yourself so you can see what the numbers actually look like. And what I recommend, you know, whether you have less than 20% down payment or if you have the full 20% down payment, that you take a look at your mortgage and see what in fact would happen from a monthly payment standpoint if the interest rate was higher by 2 percentage points. Now, 2 doesn't feel like that much, but, you know, on a hefty mortgage, that could be pretty significant. And, you know, an extra payment of a few $100s or maybe even $1,000, who knows, every single month could really put you in financial ruin or in a place that's just too tight and too uncomfortable, especially if you have other debts to pay. I don't know, maybe if you've got credit card debt, or, you know, if you're planning to make a significant purchase of a new car, or if there's other things in your life that you know you're going to have to be dedicating money to on a monthly basis. Make sure that you do this stress test so that you can actually see and feel exactly what it's going to be like from a financial standpoint. And what I really suggest, and this is where I don't know if you're going to go this far, is, you know, for at least a few months, and this kind of is going to lead into my second stress test, but let's focus on the first one for now. For at least a couple of months, 2-3 months, really allocate that money, put all the money that you would be spending with the sort of higher stress test or the higher mortgage payment, put it into a savings account and don't let yourself touch it, and see how you do. Because it's really easy to think like, oh yeah, no problem, I can get by with $200 for groceries. Not, especially if you're a meat eater or if you're organic or if you've got lots of people in your family, like it's just not very feasible, and you may not want to significantly compromise that in your lifestyle. So, you know, if you are planning to buy your first home, you should definitely do your own stress test, because I don't want you to end up in a situation, and you don't want to end up in a situation when the mortgage is up for renewal. You know, if you get a 2-year term, a 3-year term, a 5-year term, in a very short period of time, interest rates can start to really, really climb up. And if you don't have an emergency fund to match, if you don't have an increase in your income to match, you can find yourself in a really tough situation, because when it comes time to renew, you can only renew on the rates that are there. You don't get to just say, oh, I want a lower rate. It doesn't happen that way. Who knows what the market's going to look like and interest rates are going to look like and the economy is going to look like when it comes time for you to renew. So test number one is whether you have less than 20% down payment or more than 20% down payment. It makes a lot of sense to stress test the interest rate on your mortgage rate so that you can see how you'll do and how you can afford with a higher monthly payment every single month. Okay, so that was stress test number one. Stress test number two is for first-time home buyers, and this has to do with your lifestyle, is in, the months leading up to buying your first place. I think it makes a lot of sense to try and calculate all of the costs that you're going to have, everything like your mortgage, property tax, insurance, life costs, insurance costs, et cetera, and take all of the money that you would be allocating to all of those payments. Of course, like subtract your rent as if it's part of that so that you don't have to be paying twice, but put all that money in a savings account and see how you do with the leftover money that you've got in your checking account. Because again, it's very easy to say, oh yeah, not a big deal. I don't need that much money on an ongoing basis, but guys, stuff happens. Whether it's an emergency, it's birthday parties, it's vacations, your best friend's getting married, you're buying your parents an anniversary present, you need a new outfit for work. There are so many expenses in our lives that, just saying to yourself, oh yeah, I can get by with just a few $100. Oh yeah, I'm fine to eat macaroni and cheese every day for lunch and dinner. No, you're not. And if you are, that's okay, but I want to make sure that you have really gone through that experience. If you, for a 3-month duration, have allocated that money aside and you've done just fine with those few $100s that maybe you've got left over and you're happy with that and you're okay with that, then by all means, you give yourself permission to go ahead and spend all that money on your property and the life costs that you're going to have associated with that property. But if you have in fact gone through that test and you're like, ugh, it's really uncomfortable, it's not the lifestyle that I really want to live, well, at least at that point in time, it's just a test and you have an opportunity to sort of rethink your lifestyle, your approach. And maybe at that point in time, you think, okay, I need to buy a less expensive property. And maybe that means moving further away from the location you desired, or maybe it means taking some of those things that maybe you snuck in from your forever home list onto your first time home list. I mean, it would be great for all of us to have lots of extra room and lots of luxury and lots of amenities. It's really important that you balance both the property that you're going to have as well as with the lifestyle that you're going to want to have, because, it's exciting now and you want to put in all your money and everything into buying your first home. But trust me, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, you'll be like, oh, that extra bedroom that I never use, I could totally use that money to take a vacation and lie on the beach for a week. So, it's just about doing the due diligence up front, making sure that you can be comfortable financially and not choking financially. There's nothing worse than that. I mean, we hear the expression all the time, house rich. It's great that you got all this money in your property, but if it doesn't allow you to live the life you really want to live, what's the point? What's the point of having this gorgeous home with no furniture in it because you don't have any money to decorate or to put stuff in that you really want to? So it's really about balancing the two. So in this module, we've talked about a lot of financial elements, everything from the down payment through to your credit score, and there were a couple of activities. So if you haven't pulled your credit yet, you haven't written a letter to yourself, you haven't downloaded the Excel worksheet and plugged it in to see kind of what that's going to look like, then take the time to finish those off, and I'm excited to see you guys in module number 3.